Welcome to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we equipped you to more effectively lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. Each week, we help you sharpen your leadership acumen by cracking open the playbooks of dynamic leaders who are doing big things in their professional endeavors. And now your host, leadership tactics and organizational development expert, Karen Farrell Rhodes.
Hey there, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode. I don't think there's a person out there that would argue with me that communication is not an essential skill of great leadership. And on today's show, I'm honored to have Monique Russell, who's the founder and CEO of Clear Communication Solutions, which is a consulting firm that helps leaders and teams upskill their ability to communicate in a way that better drives change and workplace effectiveness. She will share with us some valuable communication models and tips that we can definitely think about incorporating back into the job day one. And be sure to stay tuned to the end to listen to my closing segment called Karen's Take, where I share a tip on how to use insights from today's episode to further sharpen your leadership acumen. And now, enjoy the show. Hey there, superstars. This is Karen, and welcome to today's episode. I am super thrilled to have our guest today, who is a very dear friend who I know is going to have a bunch of nuggets of information for us. And please welcome to today's show, Miss Monique Russell, who is the founder and CEO of Clear Communication Solutions. So welcome, Miss
Hi,
Monique.
Karen. So happy to be chatting with you here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. Believe you me. We have been trying to get on Monique's calendar for quite a bit, but she is such in high demand. We were finally able to get a date that worked and are so thankful that she's able to join us. And as you can probably tell by the name of her business, she is an expert in all types of communications, and she really focuses on communicating for better leadership and better impact, both for individuals and teams. But before we get started, Monique, why don't you share with the audience just a little bit about your background, maybe, where you grew up and maybe a 50,000 foot view of your professional career thus far.
So when I was about 6 or 7, my mom put me into ballet class. And I remember going to ballet class every Saturday and one day a week. And we had to practice and practice and practice our pliés, our bows, our cartwheels, all that good jazz. And that was in the beautiful islands of the Bahamas where I grew up. And I remember this one time where we had to do a final performance and we didn't have a whole lot of space in the front on the stage before I had to actually do the cartwheel. So we went back, we took a few steps back, and I know at the final finish, we were supposed to do this cartwheel and then, open our hands, for the audience. And I had to make a split decision if I was going to give my cartwheel the full thing, or if I was going to hold back because I didn't want to fall off the stage and I only had a little bit, right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I went ahead and I did the whole cartwheel. And when I landed on the stage, like very close to the edge, and I realized that I took this deep breath in and I was like, and then everyone in the audience started laughing. And that story just came up. They were like, they laughed because they realized that I was concerned if I was going to fall off the stage, but I didn't.
Right.
And so everybody felt it. They're like, and I said it out loud and they laughed. But that story, when you asked me like where I grew up, it just popped up here because it just reminded me of all the risks, strategic risks that I had to make, and how this whole journey of strategic decision making and risk taking has been throughout my entire life. When I went off to college and I left the beautiful islands of the Bahamas at 17, that was something I had to do on my own by myself. And then I became a mother at 18, and I turned my community of strangers into family. And then continuing on, I studied broadcast journalism. I got both graduate degrees in the science of communications, one in PR, one in advertising. And I will tell you, the journey after college, it was one that I never even considered. I started working in
Really?
executive support because I was supposed to be traveling the world, covering all these international broadcast stories on air, just like the Christiana Amonpers and, all of the investigative reporters, because I wanted to be up in people's business. Okay, I need to know what's the
What's the
real. We
scoop?
got the story and we need the real story. But that didn't happen. So I started working in corporate America
Hmm.
out in California. I also spent time in the tech space in
Mhm.
executive support. I also spent time in the healthcare space in executive support and teaching in the university system in higher education. All the communications courses, the public speaking, the intercultural communications, the media and culture, just really immersed in the science of communications through and through.
Nice.
And like we were talking, I was someone who wanted to be more engaged in work. I wanted to
Mhm.
do more. I wanted to be in the communications office. I didn't want to be where I was in that corporate space supporting executives, but it gave me a bird's eye view into behind the scenes of what made leaders really respected and supported, what made them tick. I was able to see the public facing and the back behind the scenes facing, because you're supporting, you're helping them make decisions, think through things, and be that problem solver for employee engagement question. That has part of been my journey, but sooner or later, I went ahead and I started that business alongside working in corporate America before I took the jump and just went ahead and went into my business full time, which I'm doing today.
Oh, that is amazing. And congratulations on your long time of success
Thank
in your
you.
business. Because as most people know, especially me, similar to you, left corporate America and struck out on my own, being an entrepreneur is a full-time job within itself. So, and it's not for the faint of heart, if you
Ooh,
will.
no. You could say that again.
But what I do love about your journey thus far is that we talk a lot in the world of work right now about reskilling and upskilling and and then to some extent, there's been a lesser focus on actual full degrees, like bachelor's or MBAs. Not that they're not important, they are, but now a lot of employers are talking about skills. And what I love about your story is your love still for investigative journalism kind of comes through. Your curiosity comes through when you're trying to get to the root of what's going on, when you're talking to either leaders or teams in the workplace and trying to get to those root causes. I'm sure you're using some of those skills to pull back the layers of the onion, right?
You could say that again. I mean, it is like Inspector Gadget, the female version on a
That's
mission,
right.
And I love it. It is so true, Karen. Like, just I love being able to help people figure out, unpack, uncover, okay, this is what you said, but what did you really say? What did you really want to say? What message were you really trying to get across? What are your audience think? What are they thinking? So I do use the background of my education in everything that I do on a weekly basis, even helping people to learn how to present better or be ready for unanticipated questions, because that's a big one when leaders really want to be able to answer questions they don't have the answers to. So this is something that's integrated through and through, diving into their messaging, their self-awareness, helping them
Mhm.
to make more strategic decisions when they don't have all the information.
Sure.
That's definitely my investigative journalism coming
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 through,
into
right?
play. Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, tell me, what are some of the areas of focus for clear communication solutions right now? Like, what are some of the hot areas that your business is really partnering with employers or companies on right now?
Right. So it's so funny because it's definitely connected to my own personal journey,
Mhm.
which I actually didn't see this or consider this for a very long time, to be honest with you. But
Mm,
it's really about helping the companies to keep their top talent engaged. So 30% of employees who are
mhm.
leaving the workforce, they're leaving to start a business. I mean, both you and I are here. We're validating that statistic.
That's right.
But on a weekly basis, I am talking to at least 3 individuals who are highly engaged. They're helping their company to really take some innovative stances because they're just looking for ways to solve problems. But
Mhm,
that part of the fulfillment, there's something that's triggering them for greater meaning, for greater fulfillment, and they're
mhm,
considering also starting a business. So I'm helping employers to really think strategically on how to use the upskilling approach to keep their top talent engaged. Another report that came out was the American Upskilling Survey by Gallup, and
mhm.
it was saying that 48% of people said, you know what? If someone else offers me a job where I can upskill on the job, I'm out of here. Like they're switching, they're
Wow.
gone. Yes, that's close to half. So, this is just a trend, I think, for leaders who are so busy, who, may not really have time to keep up to date with the trends and keep up to date with the shifts in the workplace. This
Mhm,
is a time where it can really be more strategic or creative in terms of how you form those learning communities at work to
mhm,
keep people more engaged. And even thinking cross functionally, what that would look like, what new skills they could think of, what new approaches they could use to keep the top talent engaged.
that's amazing. And I hate to, put you on the spot, and we don't want to give names because we want to protect other individuals. But I wonder if an example pops to mind with maybe a group or individual that you worked with that by improving their communication skills, they ended up really getting a much better result than anticipated. Stories of that really kind of help spark inspiration in our listeners, and so is there one that's all kind of top of mind for you by
Yeah,
chance?
there's there's several,
Okay.
and I'm thinking like, okay, well, how do we make this so that it is truly sterile
Yeah,
and sanitize it down,
you're
right?
right.
So, but I remember there was one individual that I was working with, and the thing about it is the love for music. The
Mm,
love for music was a passion that was, not really brought out to the forefront in the corporate space. It was something that was
mm,
done on the side. But through helping the individual really get a sense of greater awareness and seeing how to blend both skills and passion, like really bringing in, and I think a lot of employees could really think about how to help their employees bring
mhm,
in their other skill sets or their other loves and see how it
mhm.
can help them partner to create an innovation in the company. But
Right.
this is someone that we worked on, and I will just say, like, at the end of the day, they not only got a promotion, but they became a very integral part of marketing and promotions for that company using their
Interesting.
passion for music.
Music.
So I mean, there's so many different experiences where I've worked with an individual or I've worked with someone who not only did they improve their communication skills that help them work better with their team members or with their
Mhm,
leaders, but the biggest satisfaction comes when they're able to see that, okay, I could bring in this part of me. I could bring
mhm.
this, I don't have to push this to the side. I can bring this part of me.
Right.
And actually, it can also help them to secure roles because we've been going through a lot of layoffs in different
A
companies,
lot, yes.
and I know with surety 100% that a few of the folks that I've worked with, they were able to hold or bring more value to their organization because they were able to bring in the other things that they did outside of work into their existing job.
I'm curious, what do you see as one of the most common areas of opportunity for improvement as it relates to communications in the world of work right now? What is one piece of low-hanging fruit that companies could target pretty easily that people struggle with?
The easy part is not easy. So
It never is,
I
right?
know, I know we are supposed to find this like the really easy thing, but I think that's the hard part. In the past, maybe it was easy to do the check the box thing,
You're right.
but because of the shift, again, like multi-generational workforce, different priorities in the workforce, borderless teams where so many different cultures. A lot of the clients that I work with, they're in different countries. They're in
Yeah.
Spain, they're in Germany, they're in, they're and they have cross-functional teams that are all across the world.
Mhm.
So I don't think there's an easy approach. I think the approach is that we really have to support employers, really have to support individuals in getting deeper awareness when it comes to communication. What I tend to see is it's easy. It's easy for people to say, let's keep at that top level, high level training. Just check the box to say that we've brought in the communication, but for the long term we have to pair it with training and coaching for a longer period of time, and like for the team. So helping people to get better aware of themselves, to learn how to find common ground, working in different departments, they're having competing priorities. Really, that starts with getting a better understanding of self, and then also maintaining that frequency of communication. So,
Mhm.
low hanging fruit is we need to strategically quantify how poor communication is impacting our workplace.
Mhm.
And on average, it's costing one employee about $1,000 a month, $12,000 per year in poor communication. So,
That is just amazing. I didn't even realize that, even the
yeah.
financial impact
Oh,
on
yeah.
organizations. I mean, everyone knows communication is important, but when you put it in dollars and cents and true impact to the bottom line, that's very eye-opening, I think, for a lot of executives, leaders.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
for me
Yeah, and
anyway.
so many areas where there are opportunities to improve, just in the
Mhm.
meetings, or you think about time
Mhm.
management with the calendars and setting effective boundaries, advocating
Mhm.
for the team, just a lot of things happen from that lack of awareness on the
Mhm.
true impact. People will say, "Yeah, we know poor communication.
Yeah.
We have a problem with communication." But do you really know how much time you're losing, or how much time is being taken because you're not able to come to an agreement, or helping people to learn how to disagree but still move forward,
That's
right?
right.
So,
We love to give a practical tool or tip, and I know you deliver a lot of them in your coursework and your coaching work. Um, does one come to mind that a quick one, a quick piece of advice or a tool or something that someone can do to help improve one particular aspect of communication?
for sure, I will always reference the HALT method,
The
right? The
Hulk,
the
okay.
HALT, which is HALT,
Okay.
hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And this taps into emotional intelligence and also self awareness. We tend to make decisions that are in a fog, which is out of fear, obligation, and guilt, when we're not really paying attention to our needs. If we are hungry, oh my gosh, like that impacts our decision making. If we're angry, it impacts our decision making. If we're feeling lonely, it impacts our decision making. And if we're fatigued or tired, it impacts our decision making. So anytime you find yourself in that state, but you have to be aware of it, I say halt and address those needs. Grab a snack, get some water, you know, take a
Regroup.
walk, type of the email angrily, but don't send it.
Don't
Don't
send
send
it.
it. Don't send it. Don't send it, or send it to yourself. How about that? And then if you're feeling a bit lonely, you can take out a journal. You can listen to something motivational, use music to influence or shape your mood, get out in nature, call up a friend. And if you're tired, seriously, the power of a 15 or 20-minute nap, it will do you wonders.
You're so right. You're so spot on with that. And I know you're a great, leader in your own right. I mean, you were, successful in corporate America as well as, your own business. And I'm curious, what do you do? What do you do to lead at the top of your game? Where do you focus to try to bring your best at all times?
Yes. So I practice what I preach, literally and figuratively. Can't say the word today. Come on now. Figuratively. Come
Yeah.
on. So I definitely use those methods. I use the health method as well. I definitely use a lot of journaling. But I think the biggest thing that really widens my effectiveness is my intentional travel. And intentional travel, it just helps me to really see things from different perspectives. It helps me to experience cultures, always challenge the bias, because that's the biggest thing. Like
Yes.
the largest problem we're facing when we're in leadership or when we're working with others or even in our marriages and raising our kids is not being able to see different perspectives, not being able to receive the different approach or respect a perspective. I think traveling for me helps me to widen that gap.
Me too. Me too. And
Yeah.
I've traveled similar to you quite extensively, but and I've always tried to, bring my family with me when I can, to help open their eyes as well. And you're so right. When you're able to do intentional travel, and get past the touristy points and really understand the culture, the people, and
Yes.
even their diversity of perspectives, it really opens your eyes. So you are so spot on that. We have the same love.
Definitely. Definitely.
And I'm always a person of action. So in leadership and action. And one of my favorite questions I love to ask my guests is, out of the 7 tactics that came out my research, that some of the world's most successful leaders master. I'm curious, out of those 7, if any of one resonated for you, and if you could share it, or if not, what is an action that leadership action that resonates with you?
Oh my goodness. So the one that I love the most is strategic decision making, Karen.
Oh, really?
Strategic decision making.
Tell me
Yeah.
why.
Oh man. Whew. So you're trying to go on vacation and you're trying to figure out what activities you're going to do. And you're in a group of 5, and everybody has something different that they want to accomplish. But instead of choosing one thing, now 2 days out of the vacation has gone and nothing has happened because
Yeah,
no decision has been made. And
that's
I
right.
think this is similar to what happens in organizations where there's many competing priorities and everyone feels like their priority has the top precedence and they don't know how we're going to move forward, how are we going to take that next step without someone else not getting what they think should be the right solution. So I love strategic decision making because I think it gives people a framework in terms of how we're going, or a process. People like process. There's
Yeah.
freedom in process, I think. And so you have a process on how we're going to make decisions, how we are going to agree to behave and play in the sandbox when we make these decisions. And then
Right.
from a personal standpoint, I gamify it. I'm like, okay, do I have enough information to make this decision? I don't remember what book I read, but it was about the speed of implementation. I'll never forget that line. It was just like, the speed of implementation is so important when you're learning something new, when you're trying to make a decision. You may not have all the information, but making that decision quickly is what's going to get the momentum going.
Yeah.
So for me,
Can I add
that's
to that
huge.
quickly, but with the most data or information or facts possible at the time.
Yes.
So, so you can make the best calculated risk when you ultimately make the decision. So not
Yes.
doing it in a vacuum, in other words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. So I gamify it. I'm like, oh, I've been sitting on this. When literally, Karen, when I
Uh-huh.
have a decision that I have been sitting on for maybe a week,
Uh-huh.
2 weeks will give me torture. But if it's a week, I'm like, okay,
That's too much
I
for
gotta
you.
do. I don't care what it is. This decision is getting made today. So yeah.
And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I struggle with that. When I know it's critical to be a good leader, my natural nature is to, because I'm kind of a semi-perfectionist, and so my natural nature is to stop and think until I have a better level of confidence. But, running a business and having to consult with clients who need to make a decision in the moment, they don't have time to wait on, you know, me to take a week to give them advice kind of thing. That has made me have to sharpen my own skills, if you will, about taking information. That's why it's so fresh for me, taking the information you have at the time, doing research very quickly, and then making that, the final decision, or working with other stakeholders or team members to make a final decision. So, and I love how you gamify it. That might be what I need to do to help myself,
Yeah.
because I love playing games.
Yes. I'm like, you know what? When I read that, I need to really find where I read it. I was like, It was
That's
saying something,
advice.
some astronomical thing, like 80
Mhm.
something percent of people get hang up because they don't, or they take too long to make a decision, or the window of which they are inspired to make a decision is so short. And once that passes, with each moment, it gets harder and harder and harder to make that decision. So I use affirmation from Les Brown. Done is better than perfect. I literally have it
Yes.
plastered there. Done is better than perfect.
Done
Everything
is
counts. So
perfect.
yeah, gotta
And
talk to myself.
he has something to that. There's something to that sentiment. Absolutely. Well, Monique, I blinked, and we're now near closing time. But are there any last words, comments, words of wisdom that you would love to leave with our audience today?
Yes, for your wonderful, amazing listeners who are leading at the top of their game, your
Mhm.
game,
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you. Effective communication is messy. You're not going to be perfect. So, having that expectation that there are going to be some bumps in the road, I might make some mistakes, but you could always get back on track. It's an ongoing process, and you are getting better each time you learn and you reflect. So don't make it something that you feel it's too hard to do or you have to be perfect to do it. Just take that step. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work and continue to upskill and develop to bring out your best and lead at the top of your game.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monique. You have been a fantastic guest. We've had tons of nuggets of information. Listeners, all her tips are going to be in our show notes. You're going to get acronyms for HALT, for FOG, and you'll get to re-listen to all of her advice and revisit her case study example that she was so kind to share with us. But thank you so much, Monique, for the gift of your time today.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show, Karen.
Awesome. All right, listeners, thanks again for joining the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast. Be sure to share the episode with your network of strategic supporters. I'm sure there's some nuggets that will be great for them as well. And we are always thankful for the additional listeners. You all have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you next week. Bye. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Monique Russell, founder and CEO of Clear Communication Solutions. Links to her bio, her entry into our leadership playbook, and additional resources can be found in the show notes, both on your favorite podcast platform of choice and on the website leadyourgamepodcast.com. And now for Karen's take on today's topic of the role of communication in leadership. So today I thought I'd focus on highlighting just a few of the most common mistakes individuals make when communicating about the leadership initiatives that they're involved in. Mistake number 1 involves going on what we call radio silence. Radio silence is all about too little communication that causes anxiety for your stakeholders. I mean, think how you'd feel if discussions were rushed or non-existent. For some people, not receiving regular status updates and having them frequently enough makes them really question both you and the effort that you're leading. So do your best to communicate on a frequent basis. The second common mistake I want to highlight is what I call constant pings. This is when too much communication leads to annoyance of both you and other people. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, as it relates to radio silence, over communication can also lead to stress. And this occurs when you have endless meetings to discuss the project, but little to no movement on the actual execution. And it can also happen when you find yourself fielding a ton of continuous questions from your team and really sorting through irrelevant information. That is both frustrating for both you and the people that you're trying to help. And the third mistake I'd love to highlight is the miscommunication that sometimes occurs. And when it does, this really creates frustration in both yourself and others. Sometimes you have the right frequency and quality of communications, but there's a lack of mutual understanding. Maybe you think that you know what other people want, but when you show them what you've been working on, they're disappointed and you're surprised about that. Other times, you may have thought you've answered someone's question, but they're still confused. Or worse yet, you end up doing the same work on parts of the project that other people are doing because you thought one thing and they thought another. So I want to just encourage you to take some time and reflect on the work that you are currently involved in and see if any of these communication road bumps have been occurring. The good news is that with only a few slight course corrections, you can easily knock these mistakes out of the park and make them better. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and see you next week. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Lead at the Top of Your Game podcast, where we help you lead your seat at any employer, business, or industry in which you choose to play. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at leadyourgamepodcast.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand project or contract basis. Huge thanks to our production and editing team for a job well done. Goodbye for now.